he worked another 14 years. So then he says, okay, man, he says, it's going to be time for me to move on. He says, so tell you what, I've been taking care of your cattle. I'll give you the best cattle. You give me the spotted and jacked up cattle. And he took the cattle and he created a picture for them that would reflect off the water that made it look like other spotted and speckled cattle. He gave them a picture. And they reproduced more cattle than the other ones based on what they saw. What they saw, they became. Jacob learned a system. If you can see it, you can be it. So that's why we can't allow worst case scenarios. We can't allow anything negative to be painted on our canvas. We can't worry for anything. Philippians 4:6, be careful for nothing, worry for nothing, be anxious for nothing. Cast down all imaginations, because if you put it on that canvas and you meditate on it long enough, if you greatly fear it, it'll come upon you. Just like if you greatly faith it, it will come upon you. See, you're the catalyst. What are you putting on the picture? So God tells you, God tells you, okay, what I want you to do is trust me like never before. So like the gentleman I was talking to, I gave him an example of somebody else. God told them to trust him like never before. If you make a decision based on fear, how do you expect that to work out for your good? You're playing off of fear, something you greatly fear. That's never worked. Right? Just something to think about. So what God does is he take you through a deep sleep because he wants your feelings to be disconnected as he's taking you through the circumcision of your life. So what happens is he's trying to almost cut off or scrape out those bad pictures. And so what he does is he knows every time he takes away a picture, if you're in fear or in the flesh, you're going to resurrect that picture, right? Because somebody's told us that the worst case scenarios work to our advantage. You may be listening to this after our conversation, but I was talking to somebody I grew up with. It's like a little cousin, lives in Boston, who's a Cowboy fan, which is good. But if you was talking to him, you wouldn't have known. Like, I hate the quarterback. And so as we were talking, I was giving them some encouragement. But this dude was like, I just think every time we get to this point, this is going to happen. I said, so why are you even watching the game? Like, if you're expecting a team to lose, why watch the game? But this is the point. The point is, you're not the owner. You don't pay the salaries. You don't put the team together. So if you're a fan, you're supporting whatever they have at that particular time. Now, you become the GM and you're going to pay the salaries, you can make all the moves you want. But until you do that, all they need from you is faith and belief. And I gave them some scenarios. I said, remember when Dallas won the Super Bowl back in 1978? If you go through the history of what took place that year, nothing looked like they was going to win. Nothing. All types of craziness happened. Quarterback controversies. They were subbing in and out the top quarterback. And then he decided he didn't want to be on the team. He said, trade me. Roger Staubach. He wanted to be traded. So there's controversy going on then. When Doug Williams, I'm not a Washington fan, but I liked when Doug Williams was balling. Doug Williams won the Super Bowl. They had a quarterback controversy. Matter of fact, they thought he wasn't even going to be on the team. He ends up being MVP of the Super Bowl. Kurt Warner was bagging groceries before the year he won the Super Bowl. And he was not, they just picked him up because they needed a quarterback. They didn't pick him up to be the man. They picked him up like, let's get this kid. We need a backup. He's pretty decent. Quarterback gets hurt. He steps in, never loses the job, wins 2 Super Bowls and MVP. Didn't look like it. If you go through the history of go watch America's Game or something, none of those teams looked like they was going to win the Super Bowl. It was always something like, it wasn't like everything was just hunky-dory the whole year and then boom, we won it. No, I don't like the team, But Eli Manning then won a Super Bowl on somebody catching a pass on top of his helmet. Caught the pass and held the pass on his helmet after the quarterback was a second away from getting sacked and just threw it as far as he could. He jumped up as high as he could, got it on the tips of his fingers, and just had enough energy to place it on his helmet, and he held it there the whole time while he was falling to the ground. Oh, so they playing that too, I suppose. They had a terrible season. They were asking for the coach's job. They barely made it into the playoffs on wild card. Barely made it. I'm saying that to say it doesn't have to. We're painting pictures. Why? Because we're magnifying circumstances, not magnifying what God tells us. You preparing for the worst gets you the worst. Just let me help you out. Well, I prepared for the worst just in case it happened. I'm ready for it. Well, get ready for it. Because since you're preparing for it and you're thinking about it and you got it as a picture, it's going to happen, so you might as well get ready for it. How about take that same philosophy and prepare for the best? And get ready for that. I know you don't like the pain of the worst, the sting of craziness happening. Nobody does. But if you're going to get some pain for something crazy happening, just deal with the pain when it happens. But don't go looking for it. It don't need your help. The manifested positive circumstances need your help. So that's why you can't take in the world and see God's picture. You can't take in the world. You can't consume the world. You can't drink the world, smoke the world, and see God's picture. It blinds you from God's picture. So now you're living out a life, but are you living his picture? So now you're making decisions, taking a path of least resistance. How's that working? That doesn't get us what we want. That doesn't fulfill us. So we got to stop and actually line up what God's showing us, allow our imagination to lead us into what God's planned for us. You can't never see yourself as less than, and God fearfully and wonderfully made you. Well, they probably don't want me for the job, so, they're probably going to get rid of me. You done created all these circumstances. Is God with you or not? I know people that's taken jobs they weren't even qualified for. And just learned it as they got along. I know one person got a job. They said, listen, the person that made that statement, we need in this atmosphere. You don't qualify for the job, but we'll give it to you. Now, that person could have dealt with a lot of us has done before. Well, since I don't qualify, I don't want to take the pressure of the job, and then people are going to find out what I don't know. No, they already know you don't know. They didn't hire you because of what you knew. They hired you because of who you are. We can always get you what you don't know. That's called training. Even if you know stuff, we're still going to take you to training. Just this particular case, you haven't seen the information before. Take the job. Stop trying to take the path of least resistance. When you're challenged, you don't run. We were talking about it at group. We were talking about problem solving, right? And we were talking about how different people handle problems, solves problems. And how some people, they get overwhelmed when there's, they just, right? Some of the guys were saying that they keep stuff to themselves. And then some of them says they probably pretend that it doesn't exist. But then what you were saying, like either your dad or myself, we figure out what's going on with you. So then you have one of us to talk to about it, right? My dad, it seems like he knows. How does he know? That's what he's saying, right? So, but you basically saying you make sure you're around people that you can have an exchange about what's going on, but instead of just having to keep it to yourself, right? But we was talking about how some people just get overwhelmed. It's a problem. Oh, that's automatic. Shut it down. That's a problem. I can't go any further. It's a problem. Somebody doesn't like me. Somebody is giving up on me. Somebody lied about me. Somebody's treating me unfair. Surely that's a legitimate reason to just turn this thing in. Well, then what did Joseph do with his dream? Told his brothers their first thought was to kill him. That was their first thought. But God had a remnant. One of the brothers said, no, let's not kill him. Let's just put him in the pit, man, so he can come back and get him. But by the time he came back, they sold him to slavery. You're sold to slavery, and you're a king's son. The Bible says Jacob was very rich. And you get sold to slavery for what? Because you told somebody a dream? That's unfair. So he has every reason to go, oh, no, I'm about to set it off now. Wilding out, I'm about to do me. Ain't that the line? But no, Joseph didn't do that. He still honored his integrity with God. And he was treated unfair. Some of y'all been sold to slavery? I ain't seen nobody who's got that testimony in here. All right, so he's sold to slavery. Then the boss says, he tried to rape me. Because what he said was, when she said, listen, you look good. We need to get together. My husband won't find out. He said, I can't do this against God. He didn't say I just couldn't do this against your husband. He still said, now he's honoring God and he's in slavery. Some of us have been like, if there's a God, why would he let me be in slavery? What kind of God would let me get locked up in slavery? Let me be raised in the foster home? What kind of God would do that? That's what some of us would have said. Now him is like, oh no, I can't do this against God. Then he gets locked up. You think when he got to prison, it's like, well, God, I didn't do it against you. How you going to let me get locked up? What kind of God would put me in prison? He still honored God, moved up to be top guy in prison. Then turns out he was interpreting dreams, still operating in his gifts, having insight and revelation. Well, if I'm in prison, we'll just be interpreting gifts while we're up in prison here. I'll show people God while I'm locked up. Where am I at? Wherever state I'm in, they're going to see God. Because I know God will take care of the dream. I'll just keep loving on people around. So he interprets the dream. Dude forgot about him. So you would think, like, man, dude forgot about us 2 years. He said when he got out, he wouldn't forget about me. It wasn't for me and my interpretation of the dream. He wouldn't even be out. Now he out there chilling in the palace, and I'm locked up for 2 years. Because that's all it takes for some of y'all. 2 whole years done gone by. Surely, that's a legitimate reason for me to give up on God and everything that I planned. But not Joseph. Then they call him up. Something came to the guy that he saved and said, wait a minute, there's a guy in prison that interpreted dreams. Pharaoh, he could interpret your dream. Why did Pharaoh have a dream that he couldn't interpret? God gave it to him. Why did God give him a dream that he couldn't interpret? Because he knew that would trigger the guy's memory. Because it was time. Because the vision is yet for an appointed time. It was time. And when it was time, everything started to move. God sent the dream to the right person. God had the butler in place that could say, I know somebody that can interpret your dream. God allowed the stupid folk, the astrologers and the mysticism and all the hustlers to not be able to give the Pharaoh peace. Joseph cleans himself up, shows up and says, hold on, I can tell. He says, no, if you can hear from God, you not only will interpret the dream, but you'll tell me what the dream is. He said, no, I'm not telling you the dream. No, if you can interpret, if God is with you, you tell me. He broke down the dream and he talked about 7 years of famine, 7 years of prosperity. He said, during the 7 years of prosperity, he said, you might want to save up your resources so when a famine comes, you still rolling. He said, Joseph, that's exactly my dream. No one's been able to interpret the dream. Tell you what, you're going to run everything. There'll be nobody in more power in this kingdom besides me than you. He gave him his ring, cleaned him up, gave him a house. Eventually, everybody came and served, because everybody was hungry. His father's family came, and they ended up bowing down to him like the dream. So my point is, God's putting something. He gave you something years ago. God never gave up on it. Oh, somebody treated you unfair? Somebody played you, tricked you. Well, Joseph went through that. God gave you advanced information of how to handle that. That doesn't give you a pass to give up on God. Oh, somebody at the job tripped?